Hi everyone. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to use Pipenv on the CLI with a special focus on tips for Docker builds. Let's start with the install command. Depending on the way that you invoke this command and the context in which it is invoked, the install command actually does three different things. If no pip file is present and you run install with the -- python flag, it will instantiate a new pip file and corresponding virtual environment with the Python version specified. If a lock file already exists and you run install with no arguments, Pipenv will find or create a virtual environment and install the packages specified in the lock file. That would be running something like pipenv install. Here nothing will happen because, as we can see, we have no packages defined. Finally, if the install command is invoked with one or more package names as arguments, it will add those packages to the lock file and install them in the virtual environment. Here we're installing the popular requests and attrs packages. Now that we know how to install packages, let's talk about some useful flags that we can use. One flag that I find very useful is the -- dev flag. This allows us to tell PyTest that a package that we're installing belongs in our dev dependencies. It's useful to make this distinction because we likely don't need to publish, for instance, PyTest in our production container. So we can specify this as a dev dependency and only install it on our dev containers. Another flag that I find quite useful is the -- pre flag. We can use this to install packages like Black, which are still in pre-release, at least as of the time of this video recording. If we didn't use that flag, Pipenv would not be able to find a full release tag of Black and would simply error out. The final two flags I would like to talk about are -- and -- In particular, I use these in my Docker builds. So, talking about -- first. When installing the contents of the pipfile.lock, if you use the -- flag, the installation will fail if the packages specified in the pip file do not match those in the lock file. We can test this out by manually editing the pip file so that they're out of sync. Let's delete the attrs package. And now we run pipenv install -- and here we get an error. Your pip file is out of date. If we had not specified -- Pipenv would have simply created a new lock file. A large reason why we want to use Pipenv in the first place is that we want deterministic builds. And if we are arbitrarily generating new lock files as we build our Docker containers, these builds are very much not deterministic. So I highly recommend using this in your builds. Finally, we have the -- system flag. This tells Pipenv that rather than creating a virtual environment, you should install the packages specified in the lock file directly into the system Python installation. This is also a very useful tool in Docker builds because it's unlikely that you want to create a virtual environment within your Docker container. The container itself is already a really good unit of encapsulation, and so we don't need to encapsulate our application further within the container. So we can simply install directly into our system Python. Now that we've discussed the install command and some handy flags that we can use with it, let's talk about two other commands that I find myself using. The first is pipenv shell. This allows us to enter into the virtual environment that Pipenv manages for us. If we call pip freeze, we will see that all of the packages we have specified and installed in our lock file are present here. We can exit the virtual environment simply by typing exit. And then finally, the pipenv uninstall command is also useful and takes a list of packages. So for instance, let's uninstall adders. And there you go. Our pip file.lock has been updated. As you'll recall, we already deleted it from our pip file. So that's a brief overview of the commands and flags that I find most useful when working with Pipenv. I highly recommend you check out their docs. They have really good docs. And yeah, hope you found this video helpful. Cheers.